Good morning. It is Thursday, March 28th. My Culture War, Me Too, Fake News, and Politics. Being smart doesn't save you from being dumb. Let's start with Brett Kavanaugh. First is Christina Ford and Johnny Depp versus his ex-wife, Amber Heard. So, both of these, I think, are under the social topic of the Me Too movement. And they're both examples, very divisive stories and examples of people, regardless of their intelligence, making decisions about what happened based on emotion, based on personal politics and beliefs, based on their identity, their ideology that is as firm in their mind, in their left predator hemisphere, as a religion. And it's a foundational thing that can't easily be adjusted, regardless of facts, regardless of evidence and logic presented in any order, in any fashion. People, smart and dumb, will refuse to change. It's fear. It's just as with somebody who is being asked to change their identity, change their religion to something else. The right brain, that the prey instincts, that allows for for imagining what's around the corner, for imagining what the world could be. It's a scary place to be put from the comforts of the left brain, from the comforts of having everything clear and laid out and understood, to go into undiscovered territory. So, with all of what I'm going to talk about in this video, from Me Too, fake news, and politics, it's all about my own personal culture war experience, where I see and I hear and I talk to people, often very smart people, who refuse the evidence, refuse the logic, refuse to even consider, refuse to have a conversation. And I believe it is fear. I believe it is fear of their identity changing, of going into that prey part of the mind where they have to be worried about monsters coming out of the dark. They don't have the security of an established line of thought. With Kavanaugh, putting aside whatever he is politically, whatever he is he's the Supreme Court justice appointed by and confirmed, appointed by Trump, and confirmed. So he was accused, big news story, of attempting to rape Christine Ford, accused him of attempting to rape her decades ago. And the case, such as it was presented only in the context of Kavanaugh being confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. Other stories swirled around it, but there never was, to my eyes and to I think any measured review, there was never a strong case. And it made sense. It makes sense that these concerns were put aside and he was confirmed. Ford presented herself in an impassioned, emotional way, and people believed her. I personally watched her. I did not believe her, especially in the context of her activism and in the greater context of the Me Too movement. I saw a woman who was lying. That is my personal belief. But even if I believed she felt she was telling the truth, I would still side with him being allowed to be confirmed without this being considered against him, because the case was not strong, and people held on to the emotions of it and made it a black and white political issue, and they divided instead of having a conversation, and it became a mess. With Johnny Depp and his ex-wife Amber Heard, he was accused by her of being an abusive person, and now it's flipping, and it seems that, or she is on the record as being an abusive person, physically abusive person, and it's not this. The narrative has been flipped, that the woman is the abuser, not the man, the physical abuser. Or maybe it's mutually abusive, but with emotions set aside, the case as it's presented in the public appears that Amber Heard, who's the co-star in the Aquaman movie, is the aggressor, is the perpetrator, and Johnny Depp is the victim, even though he's a man. And in the broader context of Me Too, it's poignant. It flips how I think the broader public thinks of Me Too. I think the broader public thinks of Me Too as men bad, women victims. And I think that is a ideological stance that needs to be changed. And it's a very difficult thing, and a very just like with Kavanaugh, it's almost a religion, or it's like a religion, really like concrete in the left part of the brain, for people to consider that this isn't the truth. The whole world that they've come to accept needs to be changed, and it's a scary place to live in where you're not sure of your beliefs. So I think a lot, because it's all linked, whether it's Me Too and fake news and politics interlinked, I think people tend to believe that Kavanaugh is guilty and Johnny Depp is guilty, and they tended to believe that the Covington Catholic High School, that the high school students that were faced, their faces were all over social media when that one young man was facing the supposed Native American veteran, which turned out that it's arguable whether he certainly wasn't or it was arguable that he was a Vietnam veteran. Anyway, that what was being presented to people was not true. It was, people jumped to conclusions because of a shared ideology of looking at conservative white males especially, or just white males in general, or males, or there's this kind of broad category of bad, and anything that can be put into that category is wrong and is always on the wrong side. So when that's not true, it shakes the core of people. Like there's a swath of people with this bad ideology that needs to be broken, and this is the core of the culture war. Is this ideology? Ideology is on one side, and there's everybody else on the other side. There is this. It's called like the regressive left. It has a lot of names. I want to shy away from the labels, but they have in common this victimhood mentality, where this victimhood culture, where if you can present yourself as a victim, you gain status. Or if you show that you are going after someone who's been victimized, going after someone who victimized someone else, then you gain status. So these children were attacked, and now they're suing the media that presented them and coaxed the fires in social media, and they're being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's the Covington Catholic High School versus the media. And then Jussie Smollett, the show The Empire, a very popular show. So a actor from that show presented himself as a victim falsely, and presented himself as a victim to gain status, to gain wealth, because that is the path that he saw to advance himself. And he took advantage of this culture war to attempt it. And he is a intelligent person who has made very unintelligent decisions. Not just that they were immoral, unethical, but that he just did not do it. And he did not, if you look at the case, he did not do the crime in an intelligent fashion. And he's doubling down. He's claiming innocence in the face of overwhelming evidence to his guilt. And it's odd. And people believe him. Like, people believe that the Covington High School students were the aggressors, discounting the racial activists that were harassing the high school students, discounting that that a separate group of activists from the Native American related moved into their group, discounting the facts, discounting logic. They believe that these white men are guilty because they're white men, and because they are Catholic, and because they had hats with Donald Trump's campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again." Because of these reasons, they are judged evil and bad and must be destroyed. And Brett Kavanaugh is judged evil because he's a man, because he's a conservative, because he's appointed by Donald Trump, associated with Donald Trump. Johnny Depp is bad because he's a man, and because he's accused, because he's described as an abuser. And as a part of this ideology, the victim is believed. Not just that their story must be heard, but that they must be believed. It goes in the face of the foundation of our society. It's a foundational war, this culture war. we as a society have long held to innocent until proven guilty. We have long held to the value of not sacrificing an innocent person to punish guilty people. We have enshrined the innate right of free speech. It's all this culture war is so deep and disturbing because it challenges the very fabric of our society. And with Russia versus democracy, we elected Donald Trump. We used the Electoral College. The Electoral College, as I spoke earlier, makes sense because it represents regions as well as people. There's value in it. It was designed by very smart people who thought logically and thought everything through. Donald Trump was successfully elected. This was a democratic process. It was a modified democratic process because of the Electoral College, but it's still broadly speaking, a successful democratic process. And the ideology, the regressive left, for lack of a better term, has not accepted this, and their scapegoat in the media that has been taking advantage of what's called the Trump bump, of coaxing the fires of the regressive left, has taken advantage of this anger to make money promoting that Russia is responsible for Donald Trump winning the election against Hillary Clinton. And now that is unraveling, the regressive left is faced with that fear, that right brain fear. They are prey. Their ideology, their religion is crumbling, but they're holding on to it. They're doubling down because they have no other choice. They are in the darkness, and they are dangerous and desperate in this time, in this moment. They're dangerous because they can't trust themselves. They can't trust. Dangerous is maybe too strong of a word. I hope that they can look to the world around them and to the people around them and have conversations to rebuild a better and more resilient ideology that meshes and works with the evidence that feeds their minds. They aren't so resistant to it. That brings me to the last one: the Green Deal versus the environment. So I am an environmentalist. I'm 42 years old. I'm so old that it was, and before sustainability became a lovely word, it was still back when I was a kid. It was environmentalism, and I'm an environmentalist. I want to protect our environment. I want it to be I want us to work well with it. I want it to be a beautiful world forever. And I want to be able to go to a park. I see the trash. I pick it up. I think about large and small, how we affect the environment. The Green New Deal is not an environmental attempt. This is something proposed by AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, but it was stuffed with socialism and racial identitarianism and a bunch of other stuff that didn't doesn't really have anything to do with the environment. And the environmental stuff was not realistic and not scientifically sound. It was not measured. It was not an honest attempt to work towards the betterment of our relationship as humanity, our relationship with our environment, and being more in sync with it as we move forward. It's not an honest attempt, and it's been crushed in the Senate. My favorite moment was a Republican senator holding up a ridiculous picture of Ronald Reagan on a Velociraptor, I think, with a rocket launcher on his back and a machine gun in one hand and the flag in the other. And he said, "This has about as much to do with ending the Cold War as the Green New Deal has to do with climate change." Or he had made some comparison like that. And he's not. It's meme, but he's not really wrong. It feels true. I see that in the ridiculousness of the Green New Deal. And when I talk to people around me, they get stuck on the word green. Or maybe they get stuck on the New Deal if as a historical reference, U.S. history reference. But go deeper. And like all these issues, they seem complicated on the surface, but they're all connected. It's all the culture war. I tried explaining Jussie Smollett to someone who hadn't heard about it, and because it's a fake hate crime, they couldn't get past when I tried explaining what he attempted to do. They said, "Oh, that's horrible that someone would do that." And then I'm saying, "You mean the fake, that they would fake something like this?" And like, "Oh wait, it was faked?" Like, even just they aren't, when somebody is stuck in that ideology, you can say words and it'll just bounce off if it doesn't match their ideology, if it doesn't match their religion. They just don't hear the words. They won't allow a conversation. It's tough, and we need to build trust with each other to allow a foundation changing and ideologically changing series of conversations with everyone around us. Person by person, have conversations with each other, and try not to be mean. Try to be patient. This is going to be a hard time for a lot of people as they put themselves back together. And I hope that the regressive left can get rid of the regressive and just be the left. That the identitarians can loosen with the identitarianism and just and still support diversity and support and be proud of whatever groups that they're associated with, and have it not be associated with so much negativity. The culture war is going into is intensifying, and it's exciting, but it's a scary thing too. So be nice to each other and talk, and I'll see you next week.